Welcome into Win the Line for Week 18, where we break down the biggest mismatches on the offensive and defensive line in the NFL. My name is Tanner Kern, joined alongside Maxx Forde. This is presented by the 33rd team, and it's already the final week of the regular season. It went by in a blink of an eye, Max. It's crazy.
Oh, yeah. It feels like just yesterday we were here talking about here. We've been waiting all off season for the week one to start, and now we're here at the end of the season getting ready for our playoff time. And, yeah, got to love it, that elimination football.
Definitely. The stakes are raised at this point in the season. The best part is, like, in the AFC and the NFC, we know the Ravens and the Niners are the two favorites, right? But there's a lot of teams that could take it in either conference. So excited to talk about that as we progress through the playoffs here. We have our usual mismatches and then our usual budget plays here, but a couple new breakdowns. The New York Jets defense facing the New England Patriots offense. We talk a lot about motivation in Week 18. This is just a game where not a lot of motivation on surface, right? Like we talk about players having more motivation for contracts, jobs, incentives, and all that. But as a team perspective here, the Jets aren't playing for anything. The Patriots probably are going to have a massive overhaul in the offseason with their coaching staff here. So what are you looking at in this game, Max?
Yeah, well, first off, I am wearing a hoodie to Bill Belichick. The hoodie, like you said, probably a big overhaul there upcoming. I mean, there's that motivation if guys are connected with a coach that's on his way out, we want to send them out right. Like I said, there's not necessarily that motivation to for the playoffs, which is the big carrot that they're all playing for. But there's that, and then on the Jet side, from that defensive perspective, we talked about it before, where they've kind of carried that team even when the offense has put them in some bad spots. And this last few weeks, they've kind of started to slow down a little bit where sometimes you wonder if the defense is maybe getting tired of bailing out the offense, because that can definitely happen when you're bailing them out time and time again and you're not seeing that reward of maybe necessarily the wins that you should have playing that kind of defense can wear on you. And so those are definitely things to think about here at the end of the season. That said, I think that the Patriots offensive line has really struggled this year. And yeah, New York does have that talent on the defensive front that I think can make the difference here. Motivations being what they are, it's something to be a little bit wary of, but from a talent perspective, I got to go with the Jets.
Yeah, I think both units have really struggled as of late. The Jets only have 1.7 sacks per game, or their past three. The Patriots have the seventh worst offense in the NFL, right? In a lot of categories up front, they are the seventh worst when it comes to sacks allowed per game. But they're still playmakers in the trenches for the New York Jets, and that's the biggest thing to look at. Overall, the talent is there for them in this game. And then the Patriots just have not scored a lot of points overall, so you have to lean towards the Jets here. One prop I want to talk about, a team prop. Patriots team total over 15.5 points. The Jets have allowed this in 3 straight games. The Patriots do have the worst scoring offense in the NFL at 14.6 points per game. So do we see guys in the trenches like Quinnen Williams and Solomon Thomas stop the run and force the Patriots to throw and potentially get over this line? Or are you looking at the Patriots to control clock and go under?
That's a low team total. It's hard to bet the under on that. I know sometimes like that's kind of that cheese for you. Like they're trying to get you to take that over with a team that doesn't have an offense that's a very high powered defense that over the balance of the season has done well, but like you said, has allowed that total the last few weeks. I just think that low, even though I am bets here for just general play, I've got to go with the over there.
Definitely. So moving into our next mismatch here, the Dallas Cowboys, who were kind of gifted potentially an NFC East championship if they win this week. They're going to face the Washington Commanders. So the way Dallas got into the spot, we all know the Eagles had a breakdown last week. Dallas found a way to win with the refs getting kind of, there was some rig talk coming into that game, right? With the Lions at the end. We all know what happened there, but this is an ideal matchup for the Dallas Cowboys defense. I mean, Washington, they can't really protect the quarterback at all. We've seen that Dallas is built on speed. They're not a massive front, but they get after the quarterback. And Washington is allowing nearly 4 sacks per game. Dallas can win the division. They're a 13.5-point favorite. Everything seems to favor the Dallas Cowboys in the trenches. But my question to you, Max, is what needs to happen for Washington to have some sort of offensive production going against a loaded Dallas Cowboys front?
Man, in order to have any kind of production, I think that they've got to really try to slow down the pass rush by leaning on the run a little bit, maybe get the screen game going. You've got a guy who's college wide receiver there in Antonio Gibson. So he's a guy that can catch the ball, get moving. If you get some offensive line out in front of him, just whatever you can. Like you said, it is a more speed front there for Dallas. They're a team that relies on just moving fast, playing hard, physical defense. You've got, I know, like we always talk about Micah Parsons, like 4.38 guy, but you've also got like DeMarcus Lawrence, who got Osa in there, defensive tackle. So a little bit lighter defensive tackle these days, and he's moving fast as well. You've just got so much speed that I think the way you counteract that is try to come straight at him, try to be physical. I don't know if the Commanders quite have the personnel to make it happen. Sometimes you got Sadiq Charles in there that I think he's the guy that you maybe try to get behind, but it'll be a tough matchup. But if you want to beat them, I think that's the way you got to do it. Just slow down that rush. Try to make them think instead of play free football, which is what Dan Quinn defenses have done for a very long time in this league.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. They got to have, success early in the football game, and, whatever's working against the Dallas Cowboys, they got to find a way to do it and manipulate it. But flipping the flip side here, how does the defensive lineman, going back to your playing days, attack an offensive line that is bad and is struggling and has absolutely no confidence?
Yeah, I know I'm probably going to sound like a little bit of a broken record if you've been following us this season, but you just want to get on them early, man, because if there's a good chance in the back of their mind, even though they're trying to hype themselves up, come out with that confidence that they also know it. They know that the task is tough at hand. And if you just start the game fast, show them that what can happen, what they know in the back of their head can happen is going to be happening. It can turn into that kind of it feels like it's going to be a long day kind of scenario. You just play that psychological game where I'm starting fast and it's not going to stop. I'm going to keep coming. To where that in the third, normally the fourth quarter, maybe in the third quarter if you're really having a good game, but late in the game they just kind of start to soften up a little bit. Maybe I don't like saying the word give up, but that's what you're trying to make them do. You're trying to make the opponent give up. So that was the part that I always loved when I was playing. I can remember games back to high school even where like you can tell when you've broken a team, and it's a good feeling. Yeah, I can see you smiling. It too on the other side of that. So it's just when you've been giving it to them all game long, and you can feel just that all the effort is gone from that team. By the end, it's a good feeling. Yeah. On the flip side, you don't ever want to be that guy. So that's flip side. You just want to keep going.
Yeah, breaking a team is like breaking a defensive front. For me, is like the greatest feeling. Like when you're up by 20 to 28 points, I'd say at the end of the game, that's a realistic margin. Everything has gone right. You've run power and you've run trap and you run counter. As defensive lineman, like when they're going to run trap at me, they're going to run power, they're going to run counter, they're going to do it very successfully. It's not a good feeling. Same thing on offense when you just can't get anything going on the ground and you're forced to sit back and pass block. And I do think Washington's going to be in that situation a lot in this football game. We're going to talk about a team prop here. But before we do that, I know a lot of people are watching on Josh Larkey's Twitter, watching on my Twitter, and also on our YouTube channel. If you guys have questions, respond to the Twitter video, or you can tag me at @TannerCurrent_ or at Maxx Forde. We will get to those questions at the end of the show. Can be anything from player props to offensive line, defensive line matchups to fantasy, DFS, all that good stuff. And congrats to anyone who did win their league or is in the championship of their league this weekend. Commanders over under 16.5 points, Max. Commanders average 18 points per game at home. The last game they lost to the Cowboys was in Dallas, where we know, in Jerry's world, the Cowboys are amazing. It was 45-10. They've only gone over this number one time their past 4 games. Do the Commanders find a way to score 17 points in this football game?
I think that one's a little bit tougher proposition than the one we were talking about there before. Like you said, chance for Dallas to clinch the division, which we're talking about motivations. That's a pretty big one there. Get to host that playoff game back there in Jerry's world. So I just, between the talent, the motivations, like we talk about, guys are still playing for jobs in Washington. I don't expect them to just lay down. But at the end of the day, I do think there's just too much going for Dallas, and 17 is a bit of a high total for Washington to hit this week.
Yeah, and I hate laying 13.5 points too when it comes to the spread, but I do think, from a trend's perspective, defensively, this Cowboys defense matches up perfectly against the Washington Commanders offense. The Cowboys rush the quarterback. They get after it. The Commanders offense just hasn't seemed to find a rhythm in protecting the quarterback. Sam Howell's going to be under center. We should see some interceptions in this game. So really like this Dallas Cowboys defensive front against the Washington Commanders, even for, a hefty price, obviously not playing a money line, but a big spread to lay here. Moving into our budget plays here for DFS. Denver defense versus the Las Vegas Raiders offense in this game. The Raiders offense 25th in points per game, scoring just 19 per contest. They have found a run game a little bit this season. Denver's allowing 137 rushing yards per game, which is one of the worst in the NFL. Again, though, I think this comes back to talent. There's slightly more talent on the Denver Broncos front than there is on Las Vegas's offensive line here. A lot more motivation, I think, for the Raiders in this game. But why do you like the Denver defense for $2,800?
Yeah, you said it there, just the talent. This defense we've talked about a lot, I feel like, in this section over the last month or month and a half of the season. It's a defense that, again, I'd hate to bring it up, but I'm going to do it again. That 70-point game against Miami really kind of scared people off from early on, but as the season went on, they showed that that's not who they were. That's who they were on that day, but that's not who they were as a defense on the season. And they've had a really strong season the rest of the back half of this year. And so they've got guys in the secondary that can make plays. Obviously, this is a trenches show. They've got guys up front that make life hard in the front seven. You got Singleton there. Shout out to my fellow CFL, former CFL guy there, making plays in the linebacking core. It's just, they've got a lot of talent on that defense. But like you said, Las Vegas does seem to love to play for Antonio Pierce there. So I think they do have that edge and motivation with both teams eliminated. But that defense is, I think, when it comes down to it, they're just better than that offense.
Yeah, I really like DJ Jones, a defensive tackle for the Denver Broncos, 4 solos and a sack in his past 2 games. Zach Allen's also been very good in there. So a lot of talent up front for the Denver Broncos. But I do think my one hesitation here about playing this, if it was DFS, is just the fact that we're going to see a lot of motivation from this Raiders team. They're going to come out. They're going to want to play hard, and that's going to start in the trenches. I think the offensive line could set the tone there. But again, for the price, very good number. Final matchup here, Rams defense versus San Francisco 49ers offense. This is an interesting perspective here because you look at the 49ers, they're already in the playoffs as the 1 seed. The Rams are already in the playoffs. They're playing for seeding right now. If they win, they're the 6th seed. If they lose, they will be the 7th seed if Green Bay were to win, because Green Bay holds the head-to-head advantage over them. So 49ers should sit a lot of starters. We're not going to see Christian McCaffrey at all. LA Rams have a pretty strong rushing defense, only giving up just over 100 per game. Without McCaffrey, I think the edge does go to this Rams front. So why do you like them in this game overall? Do you think they're going to be sitting starters? Do you have any hesitation there as well?
Yeah, this is a little bit of a speculative play on them sitting starters. You see Christian McCaffrey out. If you see Trent Williams out, even if you see some of these guys, Brock Purdy, Deebo Samuel, if you see them even for like a quarter or two, maybe they pull them out after a handful of drives. Like, it's a preseason game for them essentially, because it doesn't really matter. They've clinched that bye. And so I don't expect that we'll see 4 quarters of their starters. Obviously, NFL roster being what it is, one thing different from the preseason is it's a 53-man roster. You don't have that full preseason roster. So some of their guys are going to have to play, but I do expect to see a lot of their stars out of the game for a good portion of it. And I think if anybody has any motivation playoff wise, obviously, like we said, they've have other motivations, but from the playoff perspective, the Rams can try to maintain that 6th seed, because being the 7th seed, you guarantee you're going on the road every week if you win. If you get the 6th seed, you're probably still going on the road every week, but there's a chance that you get that home game at the end. So and also if they have a preference between winner of the NFC East there and Detroit as well. So there's a little bit more there to play for in terms of positioning. I don't see any way that San Francisco's leaning on the guys that they're normally leaning on for the balance of this game, maybe for a handful of drives or a quarter or two.
Yeah, it's tough because you get Detroit, who's never really hosted a playoff game, in years,
Yeah.
or Dallas and Jerry's world. So just not a good matchup either way there. So what's your thoughts though, going back, like when you were playing right now, you're Aaron Donald, right? You're coming this game, 5 tackles, 2 sacks against the Giants, and you got to say, hey, we're going to be the 6th or the 7th seed. Most likely we're going on the road throughout the entire postseason. But at the same time, too, if you win, you have a better seed, but you're also a veteran. Like, what do you think they're going to do with the guy like that? Because that plays a huge factor into DFS for the week.
Yeah. A guy like Aaron Donald, I think, is a guy that maybe it's one of those things that at this point in the year, everybody's hurt, right? And I know it's a cliche that you go through a car wreck every week, but I think it's something that's very real that a lot of people don't understand is there's times when you come in to the facility on that Monday or that Wednesday, and shoot, you feel like you can barely move, and then by little, Thursday, Friday roll around, get into that walkthrough, and now you feel good again. But it's that thing where if you want to get a guy like Aaron Donald a little extra rest, you've clinched the playoffs. You don't necessarily have to push for that extra seeding. I think it's a great opportunity to do that. And they've got some guys that are coming up around him. Kobe Turner, I think, is out there, the rookie, leading all rookie interior defense lineman in sacks there. So, it's an opportunity to rest some of those guys, get some reps for those for the younger guys, and they still got. They've got enough guys to fill in backfill for them, especially if San Francisco is going to rest a handful of their guys. I expect to see, like I said, some of their offensive linemen there just because the roster restrictions of having that 53-man roster. But I don't expect to see Big Trent out there, who is a little bit of a game changer.
Yeah, definitely. I do think if it comes down to resting starters, obviously San Francisco is going to rest a lot more guys. And, probably like a preseason game too. I wouldn't be surprising to see them take a few drives in this game just because they are off next week. They will be off for the first week of the playoffs with the 1 seed. So good call there for $2,600. Max, you got to pick between one of these or these two. What are you going to take?
Yeah, I think here I do like to spend down and go with LA just because I do think it's a little bit more of that exhibition feel for San Francisco's offense. Like you might get hit on those early drives. It might not look pretty in quarter one, but I think over the balance of the 4 quarters, it's going to look a little bit better. I think they're going to have opportunities to make some plays against guys who they're still very talented players. They're NFL players, but maybe haven't had the experience to play. We talk about rest versus rust. There's going to be some guys that have rested most of the season playing probably for San Francisco. So might be a little bit rusty there. And I just think it's a good opportunity to spend down, save some money. It is speculative. Might get burned a little bit, but yeah, it's a play that I like.
I mean, I definitely like the $2,600 more. The biggest thing I'm fearing with that Raiders offense is just the fact that playing for Antonio Pierce, how's that offensive line going to come out, and are they going to play, take it to Denver rather than, Denver not playing for much in this game. I mean, just nothing's really gone their way. They got Sean Payton in there now. They're figuring out what they're doing with their quarterback. I think there's some turmoil there. So it should be interesting to see what goes on in that football game. But for a budget price, can't beat it for $2,800. Max, week 18 in the books. Can't wait to watch these games, get into some meaningful football. You got some offensive line, defensive line rankings coming out on the site, right?
Oh, yeah. Got those rankings coming out for the playoffs. It'll be the 14 playoff teams, so be looking out for that. Should be coming out next week. So really excited to get those together for you and, hit the website. So we'll be seeing who those 14 teams are going to be here in week 18.
Definitely. Well, we appreciate everyone who's joined us for this week or any week of Win the Line, guys. Appreciate it. We will be coming at you during the playoffs at some point, so stay tuned for that and check out all the other content on the 33rd team. Tanner Kern, Maxx Forde signing off. We'll see you soon on Win the Line.